And I'm going to turn off my camera so it's not eating up my connection here. All right, so last week we kind of went through the IDE Eclipse and did a really simple demo on the script. So today we're going to go a little bit deeper. And so I'm going to go right into Eclipse. Sorry, not Eclipse. Wrong one, that's for Java. No, cancel that. Okay, Visual Studio Code. Okay, I hope you have that up and running. And so last time we were talking about where to place your code, right? We mentioned that you can place anywhere in your script, in your web page, preferably at the top of the page in the head section, or anywhere in the body section is fine. Again, in the textbook, you will see that most of the code will be written directly into the body section. And then later on, it will show you that it's placed in the body, the end of the body section down here. And the reason why is because the page is rendered from top to bottom, right? So you want your script to load at the very bottom when the DOM has been rendered, okay? So I want to cover a few things. First is how to declare variables. And you already done that in the first chapter. It shows you a very easy way to do that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to create a new one. Okay, I'll put here, we're still unit 1. So I'm going to create another folder in here. And we'll call this the practice, just for us to practice. Inside here, I'm going to create a new file. You can right click on it, new file. We'll just call this index also, HTML. And if you remember, the shortcut to create the basic foundation is the exclamation mark, okay? And just hit enter. If you have this is called the Emmet abbreviation. Emmet is a tool that is built into most IDEs to give you this shortcut. Okay, so if you don't see that, if you happen to forget it and you missed it, you hit a space bar or something, that's gone. If you go back, it won't show up. If you put your cursor right next to that and you press the control space bar, it will come up again. Or you can just retype it again. Okay, hit enter, and we have this added for us. So save this, and then we're going to create a very simple script to declare variables. Okay, so I'm going to do right in the body here so we can see. Well, actually, let's do the top here, right? So you put right below the title, or type in script. So inside here is the script space. Only JavaScript code can go in here. And you declare variables in 3 ways. The old way, way back in the mid-90s when it was first created, you can create a variable without using any special keyword. So for example, if you want to use the word like points, I'll just do that. Points equal 10. That's it, right? Very simple way to do that. That's one way to declare variable. And I'll tell you the reason why there are 3 ways. So that's one way. The other way you would see is use the keyword var. Okay, it's followed by space and the name of the variable. Say we have, school. I should put here gateway. Okay, and as you can see, I did not put semicolon. I would recommend that you do all the time. It's not required in JavaScript unless you have variables or multiple statements on the same line. Then you have to put semicolon. As you can see here, lines 8 and 9 are separate statements. Oops. So therefore, you don't have to put semicolon. If I were to say, do like this, then now that's a problem, right? So it does not know that this is a second statement. So the interpreter cannot know that unless you put a semicolon here, okay? And then that's fine. Or if you put a comma, no, that's for Java. Yeah, semicolon is the way to do it. So I always recommend to put a semicolon at the end of every statement. So every statement is represented by a line here. That's why we have a line number here. Okay. So line 8 9. So that's two ways to create a variable. The third way, which is the newer method to do it, is to use the keyword let. Okay. So let. So we'll say let city is equal to Racine. And let me do something a little bit different here. I'll put a single quote. Right, so we'll create three variables using three different ways. This is just a whole number. This is a string. This is also called a string. So in JavaScript, you can wrap a text, a single character, or any white space, or it doesn't matter, with a pair of single quotes or a pair of double quotes. Both of those will be interpreted as a string. So you can use either way you want. Okay, but you cannot mix them. Like you cannot do a double quote and a single quote like this. Okay, if you do that, it's an error, and vice versa. So it must be closing and opening, opening, closing must match. Okay, so we'll talk about variables. How do you say variable scope later in the course, maybe like in chapter 2 or chapter 3, and where this becomes really important. So this is also known as a I put it here. This is a global variable. Okay, global means it's available everywhere in the web page here in the document. That means as soon as, let's say, when the render engine runs this page and it runs to line 8, it renders this point. It creates a placeholder in memory and RAM. It assigns the value 10 to points, and then from this point on, this variable points exists in the entire application. Okay, inside and outside of functions, it doesn't matter where. And we'll talk about scope later. So this is what they originally used to create variables. This one here is called a local. I would say kind of local variable. It's not really local, but a local, I would say, when we say the word local, it's always referred to the space inside a function. Okay, so that means this variable exists only inside a function. It does not leak out outside the function. So for example, I mean, I'll just show you here. So usually you do something like this. So function, ABC, and we'll learn function next time. So like that, right? So this variable is contained within the function ABC. So therefore, if I access this scope, the school here outside, like in line 14, it will not work. So if I go, if I try to access school, it's going to fail because this is restricted to the space within the function. So this is called a local variable. Okay. If there's no function outside of it, it is not contained inside the function, then it's almost treated like a global variable as well, because it's no function that can contain it. So usually this is referred to a local variable. Sometimes it has a function scope. It will always be hoisted up to the function that is contained within. Okay, so again, we'll learn that later in the course. And the third way is this let here. This is a really called a block variable, or we call it a block scope. So it'll be a global scope, local scope, and block scope. Okay, a block scope means that if you put a variable inside a pair of block, and a block of code is anything that is defined within a pair of curly braces. This is a block of code. As you can see here, a function has a block of code, right? This is a block of code by itself. There's nothing in it. And these are also block of code, but in the global space. Okay, there's nothing contained it. So if I move this variable inside this block of code like this, Okay. What this does is that this variable city is constrained to this pair of curly braces only. It only exists within this block. Once I'm outside of that block, this is destroyed. Same thing here. Once I'm outside the function, this variable here gets destroyed from memory. And if I go back to the function, it gets recreated again. Same thing here. If I can go back and rerun this again, this city will also get recreated again. But because points is in the global space, it will always retain its memory. It will stay in memory and this page until you either close the browser or you navigate away from this page. If you don't navigate away from this page, then this variable points will stay on the RAM memory for indefinitely. Okay, which is why they created the local variable and also the block variable to prevent any memory leakages. Because if you create a lot of variables using this method, your page becomes really huge and you have a lot of memory usage, and maybe some of these variables you don't use them a lot. If you just use it one time or two times, why do you keep in the global space? Because you're just consuming memories and just wasted memories, right? So I mean, for a small application, it's not really a big deal, but when you deal with like large applications, then every millisecond counts. Okay, so also RAM is also really important. So 3 ways to create variables. Just remember that points is always the global space. This is contained within a function only, if there's a function, and let only exists within a block of code. I mean, you don't have to put it there, but if I do put it there like this, then it will only contain within that block. It does not exist outside of that. Okay, so I'll show what this means when I do the code down here. Okay, so let me just turn this off, and we'll go back to what I was doing before. And if the code's really ugly like this, and you want to fix it really quickly, make it really nice, I think there's a shortcut for that too. If you go right click and just say, click on the format document, and it will reformat your code for you and make it really nice. Okay, so some shortcuts in here. Okay, so we created 3 variables and you can use them. So let's print this out in the body of the document down here. So as you can see, we have one block of script here. I can have another one down here. And let's just put here, let's just say in the body here, we'll type in script. Oops. And we can, use JavaScript to print out some text to the browser. So we use the document. Okay, you saw that type really fast. Again, show you DOC. If you see the word already you want, you just press the tab key. Okay, and then dot right tab, and then we're putting here the school. So you put here like school. I just pass the variable school to the right function, and then we'll write the word gateway to the browser. We'll do the next one. We'll put here the city. And of course, point doesn't make sense, but we just put points anyway. Okay. Right, so we're doing that. We're going to print these 3 variables, the value of the variables to the browser. And if you were here last time, if you right click on it and run the live server. All right, so Amanda, I think you were not here last time. If you haven't watched the video, and if you're using Visual Studio Code, you need to install the live server.
Yep, I did.
Okay, great, excellent. Okay, so let's go and run that. And let's see. So this is what you will see. As you can see, it doesn't look as nice as we want because we want 3 lines here, only shows 1. And the reason why is because
there's no line break.
That's right, right? So you have to write that in there in your code explicitly to make it work. So that doesn't matter if you use the write or the write line function, the output is irrelevant, okay? Because this is the web, this is the code only. So you have to put in the school, the BR, and so on. So we can do that by using what's called a concatenator. So in JavaScript, the concatenator or a joint operator to join 2 or more strings is the plus symbol or the plus sign. So here I could say school, and then I'll put here plus, and then I want to put the BR, so that is a string. So it must be in the string format. I put here BR. So school, and then line break, city, line break, and so on. The last one here, we don't really care. I mean, it's the last statement. So if I do that now and I go back to my result page, you see that now it's much nicer. Okay, maybe I'll just do this so that we can have both screens at the same time. Yeah, this is the, I can go smaller. Well, I thought I could shrink it a little bit smaller, but I guess I can't. All right, so I showed this because it updates live. So if I change, like, for example, to 100, right? If I save my file, you see that it updates live. So I can kind of see that result very quickly. Okay, so this is the concatenator operator in JavaScript. It's also used for addition. Okay, so how does the script know, when does it add and when does it concatenate? And it knows it by looking at these results here. So this variable, this is a string. So if there is a string inside here at all, then everything in here will be converted to a string. Okay. If they're all numbers only, then it knows that these are numbers. So therefore it will perform an addition operation. Okay. So even if I say, for example, I put here school plus points plus BR, right? This is indeed a number, not a string, because I did not put a quote around it. But when you print it out, you will see that it's going to let's see. Let me save this. It's a little bit laggy on my end here. Okay, there we go. So once I saved it, it updates, and you can see it prints 100 here. It does not add to the string. However, if I put like put 10 or 1 here, if I save this, you see that it adds to the 100, right? It knows because this is a number and this is a number, and then this is a string. It appends that at the end. So it will add first, and then the next is a string. So therefore the entire piece will become a string after it reaches a string. So the process is a little bit tricky when you do this kind of work.
So if it's not 2 numbers, it just adds it together as one complete string. It converts it to a string.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, if there are 2 numbers, it will add first, and then it will move on to the next one. If the next one is a string, then it will combine as a string. So it goes from left to right. So if I do, for example, 1 plus points plus school, right? It will do this operation first. So I expect it to be 101, and then gateway, and then the line break, as you can see here. However, if I put like 1 plus, let's say I put a dash, the plus points again. Then everything becomes a string. So it would say 1-100 and so on. So is the immediate operations. If it's a string, then it will convert to string. So the string takes precedence. And so some languages have different operators to do this. Like for example, PHP has a different way to join strings, where the add is always used as a math operation. But in Java and JavaScript, they use the same symbol, so it's a little bit confusing sometimes. Okay, so I want to show you another way how to do this using something quite newer than when the book was written, and that's by using what's called a template syntax. Okay, so template syntax looks like this. Let's go up here to the script up here, and I'm going to create a so for example, if you want to join two strings, I showed you down here, right, the plus symbol. If you want to join school and city together as a third variable, so you can say var location, for example. I put here school, oops, maybe plus the comma, and then plus city, right? So it would say gateway, comma, Racine. That's the expected output. And if you print that out here, as the, let me just replace the last one here with the location instead, okay? So it would say, let's see. Something wrong here.
Did your server stop?
Yeah, it appears to be. I'm not sure why. Nope. Does your run okay? Somehow it doesn't like my. Interesting. Let's see. All right, so let's see what's going on. It does not like this line. Let me just do it again. I think it's because the word location here. It might be a interesting. Do you guys have the same error?
I'm using WebStorm.
I use WebStorm, but
Yeah.
do you have this error, or does it show anything? For some reason, mine doesn't.
Oh no, I get a 404 too.
You do? Okay.
Something about that code, I guess.
It must be. We must have crashed something here. Interesting.
It breaks it, I guess. Maybe
All
we
right.
found a new bug.
Yeah, that is very weird. You know what? Let's change this to just LLC. I'm wondering if that has anything to do with it. That is weird. Yeah, it's no longer works. It just, we crashed the server. Interesting. Well, let me close this and run it again. Yeah, from somehow I crashed that. So I closed the browser and rerun it again. But I changed my variable to LLC instead of location because I remember location was one of the keywords. It shouldn't matter though. I'm not sure why. Let's try again. Location, location. Okay, I'm gonna save. Yeah, I got the error. So the word location here must be a keyword.
Okay.
In the browser. I know location is used in the context of where your URL is located. So that's why too. But I guess this is not a favorite word, even though I use LLC. I mean, a var in front of it. So let's change this to just say LLC, lock. And if it doesn't work anymore because it crashes, just close the browser and do it again. Never had an error before. Interesting.
The W3 schools doesn't list it as a keyword, so maybe it means something to the browser.
Probably. Yeah, the location will be something like if you do a, for example, if I go to the browser here and the console, if I type in like window dot location, okay, it's a keyword in the window, so it tells you the location of this page. Yeah, so it's a part of the browser window object.
Okay.
Yeah, so that must be the reason why. Okay, so fine, we use lock instead. All right, so you see that the third line here prints the gateway, comma, Racine, right? Prints exactly what we added here, the name of the school, plus the comma, followed by a white space, and then the city here. Okay, so this is a single line variable, right? But after all, it's all strings. Now, what you cannot do is you cannot, let's just say school plus, and then I'm gonna put like, let's just say I'm out of space. So usually you might run into this issue. That might cause your line to, so you reach the end of your page and you can't see it because now you have to scroll left and right to see it. You say, okay, well, I'm going to continue the next page, next line, right? And you would think that this would be all on the same line, like that, just to make it for it's for readability, right? This plus that should print the same statements. Okay, if I save this now, okay, so you can see that it still works fine. So we join strings with the plus, that's okay. One thing that you will find kind of annoying is if you have a lot of text, a lot of variables, and you put them together like this, right? You have a long lines of code with pluses in there. You see a lot of double quotes, single quotes in there, and it gets really confusing. So instead of doing this way, you can use what's called the template syntax. This is the backtick character right to the left of the number one key key in the top left. So you can do something like this by using, for example, I'll put here LC2 is equal to, you put the backtick, a pair of backticks like this. And again, I'll put a semicolon just in case to close that. So in the backtick, and I'll make this as big as you can see. So make sure it's a backtick and not a single quote. Okay, they're different. This is a single quote, straight quote. That's only for single line text. So for example, if I put, you know, ABC 1, 2, 3, if I continue the text, if I hit enter, if I do it again, like that, you see it generates an error. Even though my quote starts here, ends down here, you see that I hit enter here, it goes to the next line, has a line number, and I have 3 lines of text code. Because this is treated as a single string, this will have an error because you cannot split strings like this. Okay, here we could because we're using the concatenator, right? So if I were to write a really strong long line of text, say I live in Racine, that's short. If you put I live in Racine like that, it doesn't work. To make this work, you have to use a concatenator, right? So I live in, and then you close the quote, you put the plus, and then down here again, have to be the quote again. So this is fine, right? It looks kind of ugly, but if it's really long, you want to break it into multiple lines. And so to resolve this issue, you can use the template syntax. And that's by using the backtick. So here is the backtick, begins here, ends here. So now, using the backtick, I can use multi-line to assign a variable, a string to a variable. So I can do something like I live in Racine. As you can see, I use 3 lines in my code, and this is still being treated as a single line of text, whereas you could not do it before with either a single quote or double quote. You can't do this either, right? Okay. So the backtick saves the day. If you want to write a really strong, long paragraph, assign that to a single variable. This is very handy. As you can see, we can print it out. I just changed it to LOC2 down here. I save that, and you will see that it prints to the browser just like so. And white spaces are ignored, okay? There's only one white space preserved. Even though I put like so many white spaces like this, I believe it will just ignore those. Just one white space preserved. So you can use this back tick. It's called a template syntax. And it's the reason why it's called a template is because you can put variables in here. So for example, I live in Racine. Let's put it back to the single line so it's easier to read. And let's say that if I change this back to say I live in Racine, I would put like the other way was to do like this. I live in, right? I live in, and if I put Racine, the city, the variable name, it looks like that, right? I have to put a concatenator plus the variable name. If I use the back tick like this, I can place in here a variable. I can still use the plus if you want to like this. Right, I live in Racine. See, I live in Racine. But using this backtick, I can remove this plus sign. I can ignore this, put it inside here, and then close that. And this is, I can treat this like a variable here. This is a variable city. So you can wrap this inside a $sign followed by a pair of curly braces. Like that. So you put the variables inside a $sign followed by a pair of curly braces. This will be interpolated into a variable, and it will extract the value here and put it in here so that you can ignore all these pluses. So you can say I live in Racine, put comma, period here, my school, college is, and then here, school, like that. And as you can see, I live in Racine, my college is Gateway. So it saves you a lot of coding. And this is called a template syntax because this is a template, right? A template variable where you can declare a variable inside here. You can set the variable outside here, anywhere in your page here, and put it right in here without using the plus operator all over the place. It makes your code really nice, and you can write multi-lines of strings in here. So very handy. Again, this was not available during the publication of the textbook, so you won't see that in your book at all. Also, the word let, it wouldn't, I don't think it's there either. All right, so the next topic I want to talk about is just a brief introduction to objects. You already heard about it maybe in the previous class or other classes, but object in JavaScript is very similar to other languages as well, like Java and PHP and C++ and so on. So JavaScript is an object. It is a object-oriented programming language, although it's much more flexible than that. Okay, when we talk about object, and especially in any of the C derivative languages, like again Java and JavaScript and PHP, all these are C based languages. When we talk about an object, we refer to an object as a thing, right? And a thing like an object has properties and features and actions. So you see down here, the function called write. This is a function. Function always has a parentheses when you invoke it. You saw when I declare a function ABC earlier, I put a parentheses at the function name. So every time you see a word followed by a pair of parentheses like this, it's always a function. So this function right here is prepended with a dot and then followed by the document to the left. Okay, so if you read from left to right, and this is always like the object. Okay, this is the object or the parent, if you will, the object that has a property or a function called write. Okay, so this dot here denotes a property. So document has a property called write or a function. A function in our case would be like an action, right? It does something. If you think of an object in the terms of the English sentence, would be the action. This is the noun. This is like the verb, right? It writes something. Document writes. And then if you think about the adjective or description, then you would create something else, like for example, document dot name, right? And then you give it a name of something, let's just say my document. So this is a property or an attribute does not have a parenthesis, so you can say this is a property or it is description of this document. This is a function of this document. So you can have a lot of attributes or properties belonging to an object. So every time you see a dot in your code, and you can have a lot of layers. I showed you last time that this window, this document actually belongs to the window, right? So all of them are. Because we're already in the window environment, you don't have to type window dot something, a document. It's just redundant. So you can see that window has an object called document. Document itself is an object, has a function called write. Okay. Window also has this function called alert, which you already kind of knew. As you can see, this is a function belongs to the window object. It does not belong to the document. If you try to write document.alert, it won't work. Okay, it does not belong to the document, it doesn't have it. So that's what object does in terms of this script. So all the dot notation tells you this is an object. And you will see a lot of these in JavaScript, and we use a lot of them as well. Later on, when we create our own classes, you can also have the ability to create your own class and properties and functions that all belong to the same object. So it's an object, and which is why JavaScript is used to manipulate the document object, right? This is web page object. And in JavaScript, we use the dot notation to reference or to access a property of an object. If I save this, you see everything just work just fine.